How honest do we want to be? That's the real question.
That mountain view isn't going to solve what was and what is.
For us, this news was the separation of the hopefulness that we had that we could have a biological child.
This crushes marriages. I didn't realize I was going to cry.
I feel like the healthier you are, the harder it is to actually get through these things.
He allows us to experience those beautiful moments, if we're open to it.
People who look at pain from a distance ask why, but people who are actually within the pain, they might start with the why, but what they're really asking is where. Where is God? You want to talk about the trip?
We can talk about the trip.
All right. Want me to set the stage for it?
Hashtag the trip.
Yeah. Road trip, but
Road
not
trip.
Matthew McConaughey's road trip. Different thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, that was a fun day for you. I probably shouldn't have brought that up already.
No, I don't think you should. I thought you told me, you lectured me not to bring up other people's content.
Oh, the chances of me not getting in trouble are like next to zero.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, but that's all right.
Okay.
All right, so road trip. So essentially, do I talk to you or do I talk to the camera?
I thought we're talking to each other.
Okay, so I'll set the stage. So we've been wanting to go on this road trip for a long time. We've been married 6 years. You know, COVID got in the way of a lot of different things, and just circumstantially, me being in school, you being in school, all these different things, kind of moving pieces, to then me finishing school and you having an actual summer break for once, and, you know, us not working at a church and all those different things kind of led to this moment that we could go on a trip and we could have this adventure. And so when we were planning the trip, I had in my mind this idea that this trip was going to be this like wild adventure where we don't have to plan anything. We don't have to like have responsibilities. I remember kept saying at Starbucks, I was like, well, I work at Starbucks, I should give context, but at work, I was saying like, you know, so much of our life right now with our church and school and, you know, discerning what God's wanting for us, like everything just feels so responsible. And I'm just ready to go on a trip where we don't have to be responsible, or we can just explore and have fun and be nomad, be free spirit. And that was kind of my intentions going in. And you're smirking because it definitely did not go that way. Oh my word. So the short of it is the trip ended up being 24 days in the United States of America, and we live in Niagara Falls, Canada. And we went from Niagara Falls to Chicago.
You should premise that we didn't have it completely planned out.
None of it was planned. No.
So
yeah,
even the States.
Nothing booked. Yeah. I don't even think we had the Rocky Mountain booked, but that was like 2 days before we left.
Did we have Grand Canyon? No, we didn't even have
No, Grand Canyon wasn't booked. No, I booked that in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, like a couple
All right,
days
so let me
before.
set the stage for the trip. So we go from We go from Niagara Falls and we go to Chicago, and then from Chicago we ended up going to Sterling, Colorado, which was like a 16-hour day, something like that.
You're going east. You gotta face west.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. So Sterling, Colorado. I'm just gonna use this then. So we were in
West,
Sterling,
going west.
Yeah, the whole thing was
Going
west.
west.
Yeah. Okay. So we were going west. We end up in Sterling, Colorado. Then from Sterling, Colorado, we ended up to the Rocky Mountain National Park. We spent, I think, 3 or 4 days there. Then from there, we spent a couple days in Boulder to kind of regroup. And then from Boulder, we went to the Grand Canyon, to the North Rim Grand Canyon. And we were there for a couple of days. And then from there, we went to Zion National Park. Then from Zion, we hung out in a place called Pyramids. It was some random spot. There were no pyramids, but we knew that going in. It was just super cheap.
Pyramid campground.
Yeah, pyramid campground.
But there was mountains.
There were mountains, yeah. And so in Utah, we ended up seeing, I think it was Utah, we went to Zion, we went to Bryce Canyons, and then on the way back to Colorado, we went to Arches, and then we ended up spending our last week of the trip in Colorado dispersed camping, which was incredible. Like, that was such a highlight of the trip. But then we came home, and so the trip that's the base of the trip, though that was not what we planned. that's what
That was
ended
the
up
base.
happening. And
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to talk about it from this end than in the process of being on the trip.
Right.
And I should say we were tenting the entire thing because like we didn't have the money to rent an RV, which would have been a lot better. But
all those RVs we passed.
yeah, van life makes complete sense
Yes,
for
it
if you're
does.
going on a road trip.
Yes,
It's also extremely expensive though,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
say Livy.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the premise. So where do you want to go from there, bub?
Well, there's so much we experienced, and
How honest do we want to be? That's the real question.
well, you go on a road trip to sightsee, to see things, but there's also a road trip that you're going on in your head, in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. That is what makes a road trip. And so I think we were open-minded to the spontaneous of it, but also I didn't think like we were open for what God could kind of do in those times, but I don't think we knew the depths of where it was going to take us.
Yeah.
And that was as surreal as looking at the Grand Canyon, because one of the perspectives that we gained is, you can have a view or see 100 elk and just be blown away, but being blown away for that moment isn't going to solve what that eternal journey is going, like that, the eternal journey that you're going on through that experience, and through the experience of your own stuff. And we learned that very quickly when, we had our character, reveal itself after a lot of pressure. And there was a lot of pressure. Even though it was supposed to be like free spirit,
Yeah.
you also had to take care of, food, your water, where you're going to sleep, each other.
Yeah. Yes.
You can't just dip the other person, even though there was many moments. Yeah.
I don't know if we can say we officially went on any hikes during the trip because of how much you like to stroll and take photos at every
We went
point.
on a hike.
One hike. Maybe we can give one hike. Kara's a kind of hiker who had to take photos of every tree, every bush.
But it was insane.
Yeah.
Oh, it was insane.
Yeah, she embraced every moment when
wanted
I
to
really
absorb
wanted
it
to,
in my pores.
keep going further probably.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because we had a lot of things that we were facing, not surface level, but like deep stuff before we even left the trip. So, facing careers, facing, just marriage stuff, and not identity crisis, but it's kind of that similar like disorientation. Disorientating times. We were in disorientating times.
Yeah.
And so our mindfulness was compromised. And so I think when you're seeing what we were seeing, it's like, oh, this is amazing. And then unconsciously, consciously, you're like, but something ain't right.
Yeah.
And so that was a journey of itself. And so we had a saying on our trip. There was the trip that we dreamed of and the trip that we were on. And I think that very much so contributed to, lack of sleep for me, and maybe lack of planning, because our selves deep down were in disorientating times. So our external kind of reflected that a bit. Even though,
And I think like the trip we dreamed of, the more this trip became not the trip that we dreamed of,
right,
the more tension and frustration and that internal dialogue and distortion and division that was within us kind of rose to the surface in a real way that then created even more dynamics of just us having conflict, and I mean, I don't know how comfortable you are with, like, I mean, we're kind of already there. I think this is kind of like a deep end show. So, like, we probably should give context to how we began our trip. And are you good if we go there?
That's why I said because I think that.
Yeah. Do you want me to say it or you say it?
I think I can give context to my own kind of journey down the road or now, but I think you should.
Okay. So
you took the left on the trail, so we better continue.
Well, no, it gives context to why this trip maybe had more conflict than normal, right?
Yeah. Totally.
So essentially, Carolee and I, we've been married for 6 years now. We celebrate 6 years this summer.
I was thinking.
And we've been together this fall, it'll be 9 years, which is pretty incredible.
Yep. Next month.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
And essentially, I have a lot of health issues that we could be like 5 episodes of this show, but it's not going to be right now. So
the show is.
We're going to call it the show. But essentially, so because of my health issues that I have, we weren't sure as far as if my health issues were going to have an impact on our ability to have children biologically. And so we were on this journey, and even before we were married, we actually looked for answers, and we're kind of told like it should be possible, but like, if you continue to get sick or things turn, like it could change.
Yeah.
So we kind of went into marriage knowing that. And for the first couple of years of our marriage, we were choosing not to try to have children, which is a whole story in and of itself.
Still having fun, but
yeah, still having plenty of sex, just not,
that's
with
what
the purpose.
Fun. You don't have to premise that. They know it. My gosh.
There you go. Well, it's all right. We're married. So eventually we got to the point where I guess, hey, let's do it. Like, let's just be real. So we went for a walk at Short Hills, which is this forest in Niagara, and it was raining, I remember, and we were sitting by the river, and we sat down by a log, and you said to me, Josiah, I think, Josiah, I want to start trying to have children. And for different reasons, like you weren't ready at the time and whatever else. And so I was kind of like, I'm always game, let's go for it. And I think you were kind of needing more space for our marriage, which was super wise in and of itself.
The COVID blues were fading away.
Yeah. Fair. And so when you told me that, I remember sitting there, and I've been so anticipating this moment of like, I mean, there's different types of people. Like, some people really deeply desire to have children, and other people don't, and I have no judgment for either. But I am definitely the one who wants a child. Like, I've always hung out with kids in camps and Sunday school and all sorts of different contexts. I've always gotten along with children, and I love kids.
And it's been reciprocated,
Yeah, and so when you said that, it was just like, whoa, like, this is amazing. Let's go for it. And I remember it was pouring rain. You told me that. I was super stoked, and we decided to pray. And I remember when I prayed, I literally said the line, whatever may come. Whatever may come, God, we're going to trust you. And I remember those words just like slipped out of my tongue. And I was like, I don't know if can I say frig?
Why are you asking me permission?
I don't know. Okay,
you don't
so,
ask me permission.
all right. I remember I guess I'll be straight. Like when I
Let's go for it.
When I said those words, I was like, frig, because I knew what that meant. I knew what that meant when I said that, which meant that what if this doesn't go the way that we want?
Yeah.
And for me, there's been so many moments in my life where really beautiful and good things have happened, and almost it feels like right after something horrific happens, something tragic happens, something disappointment comes and overshadows everything. And so when I said that, it was just like, oh, I have to make a choice right now. Am I going to just wait for the inevitable disappointment to come, or am I going to choose hope in this moment? And I decided I was going to choose hope, which has some irony because, you know, fast forward 2 years in and we haven't had a child, and, you know, I'm wrapping up school and we're talking about next steps for us in life and with children, whatever, all these different things. And, you know, we decided that we were going to look for answers. You know, it's been 6 years of marriage, 2 years of trying. Everyone's on their own journey. There's no judgment here as far as what people do or what they go about in respect to this. But I think it's important that we share our own journey. And so for me, I was in a place where I said I wanted to know. I wanted to know if it's possible for me to have children. And we kind of assumed it wasn't Kara because you're a perfectly healthy woman, as far as we know. And so it was, yeah, you're beautiful too. Does that help? So we assumed it would be me, so we wanted to start there and kind of go. And so as I got closer to wrapping up school, we started looking for answers. That ended up taking a lot longer than we thought. Lo and behold, fast forward, we're I think a week to maybe 2 weeks before we leave for this road trip. So the road trip was already planned, if you can call it that, which just meant that we booked off work. Yeah. So we booked off work for like 25 days, which is the longest we've ever booked off work ever. And a week before, or a week-ish before the trip, I get the call from the fertility doctor, and it doesn't look like it's possible, and not even like slightly possible. Like there isn't even like extra things that we could do to try to like make it a more possibility.
Yeah, success rates would be compromised. Like
Sometimes you can do like in vitro stuff. I don't know what all that jazz is about, but like you can use a person, like a male's whatever, for make. I don't know how it all works, but the point of it is even those options weren't on the table because of how messed up everything is. Yeah. And so that really crushed me, and it crushed you as well. And I mean, I don't want to be the only one talking here, but that's kind of the context that we started this trip in. So we've been, you know, all these different responsibilities with our house church, with school, with work. Like we both work while in school because we don't get paid with our church and all this stuff. And then we're like, this trip's going to be super fun. It's going to be an adventure. We're just going to relax and just enjoy. And then we're given this news that's just like devastating. And I think for me, I handled it very differently than you had. And that really impacted our entire trip. Yeah, there's obviously a lot there. So and you can.
Yeah, I mean, when you were saying about your experience in the forest, when we had decided and you had said, you know, you're gonna just trust with whatever happens, that is trust, because we don't know. We never know. And that, I think, was, for me, marrying in, knowing the surface level of your health issues. I had always said that to you. That was like a vow in our marriage, was like, but Josiah, we never know. There is never a for sure thing, ever. You know, and that was always, you know, are you sure you want to do this marriage knowing, and it's like sickness and in health, I think when you are truly faced with that, then it's, in anything, you know, hard times, whatever, your character gets tested, your marriage gets tested, your family gets tested, your foundation gets tested. What have you built yourself up on? And I think for us, you know, we made that choice early on in our marriage. When we were having hard times, we sought out counseling. Because that, just because we were arguing every day wasn't just going to be the end result of our marriage, because we made a covenant. Mm-hmm. We made a sacred bond. And that's that, you know, I think that trusting is because God made that sacred bond with us before we made that sacred bond with him. Mm-hmm. And so I have to trust far greater than my actions to trust him, you know, because we do lose trust. That's a human thing. We do lose trust in each other when promises are broken in any relationship, whether it's our teachers growing up, our mentors, our friends, whatever. Trust is going to be broken. But, you know, I think that that bond that God has created with us is, you know, it can't be broken, right? On his end, you know. And I think that that's something that we've always put in as, you know, that we trust in, is his faithfulness, not our faithfulness.
Yeah. And
that is huge to kind of what you've been kind of working on in all this.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think for me, so I think when something like this happens, you begin a grief journey, right? Grief is, well, I don't want to define grief right now, but we began our grief journey, and everyone who is going on a grief journey, it's going to look different depending on the person. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, you know, grief is ultimately the loss of something. It's the attachment being broken off. It's the detachment from the thing, whether it be a person, whether it be a dream, whether it be an object, anything you can attach yourself to. Yeah. And so a grief is when you're separated from that which you're attached to. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, for us, this news was the separation of the hopefulness that we had, that we could have a biological child, you know, that I could experience what it is to be married to you and see you pregnant, you know, and we've, you know, and go through that journey of those 9 months and all those things that so many people get to experience. You know, that wasn't going to be, I guess, part of our story. And so we have to grieve those losses. But I think,
because you make things up in your head of what things could be, inevitably. Yeah. We always do that. You know, that's another, you know, human thing we do. It's just we create narratives, because narratives can help or hinder us when we're going through things. And that narrative was hope. Let's think about what it would look like for me to be pregnant, or what, you know. So yeah, that narrative, I think, helped us out, especially having fun trying to do all this. This is okay. It's going to take time, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, I guess before we get into the trip, it's like, because I guess this is a conversation about fertility now.
It's not just fertility, Josiah. It's the whole journey of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. And I think for me, there was that narrative of, is this the month? You know, is this the month that you're going to say, you know,
right. Yes.
You're pregnant.
Yes.
And I think I remember, like, maybe 6 or 7 months in, there was kind of this point where you said to me, all right, like, stop asking. Like, in the sense, not in a negative way of just like, you didn't want to continue that, you know. And I think that was a really defining point in our relationship in this journey, in the sense of, that was kind of the first real point that came up that was, I guess you could say, a reflection of us being on 2 different journeys, yet on the same track, right? Yeah. We're on the same track towards, we both desire to have children,
right?
But the way in which we walk on that track looks different, because we're completely different people with different contexts and different background and different personalities and different choices that we've made through pain and through promise and through all these different things.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a point in which, for me, there was this like hopeful anticipation for that day where you were going to say, like, I'm pregnant. And I still held on to that. And I held on to that and held on to that and held on to that. And if you can imagine, after like months and months and months and months and months of doing that, to then I think being told by the doctor, you know, like, no bueno, like, this isn't going to go no more.
Yeah.
It was just like, there had been so much anticipation for me that it just kind of felt like everything shattered. You know, and I know you said, like, about trust and how that's the foundation. I think for me, retrospectively, I didn't see it in the moment that we were in it.
Yeah.
But that's what kind of happened, was like, it was just like, whoa, like, how, there's no way, like, there's no way, this isn't our story. Not this. Like, we've had we've had to work through a lot of different no's in our life. And this was one that I was just like not ready to hear. And so that kind of completely impacted the trip that we were on. And I think, you know, for you, maybe you can speak of how this journey has impacted you, you know, before even leading up to the trip.
Well, like I was saying, like, I married you, and I think knowing the surface level, right, your health issues, and I hope I can say this, but like, one of the premarital conversations was like, Carolee, like, you said this to me, like, Carolee, do you even want to do this knowing my track record? I'm like, do you even want to, you know,
you should define what I mean.
Track record with your health.
There we go. Yeah.
Track record with your health.
That means something different.
Right.
Nowadays.
Track record with your health. And I'm thinking, what's crazy is, like, yeah, just because I'm healthy on the outside doesn't mean that I don't have my own track record of stuff. I think we all bring in that stuff because medically you're diagnosed with something. Society puts you in a whole different category of, like, unworthiness. And, like, you carried that unworthiness into our marriage, and it's crazy because it's like part of our first steps of being married was like, what does worthiness look like? Because worthiness does not look like putting in a whole bunch of work and brownie points. It's so much deeper than that. It's sacrificial. It's unconditional love when crap hits the fan and you still have to endure, and that, like, steadfastness. I didn't realize I was gonna cry, but
Ashley pulls up, like, the planted tissue.
well, that's because I have a cold. So I think I was just open. Like, I think I was just open because I had endured other stuff in my life. And by the grace of God, there were so many moments where I'm just like, wow, that was a miracle.
Yeah.
Wow, he keeps his promises. And so I think, and this is not a, you know, high horse kind of thing, but I was open to, like, whatever, because we don't have, as much as we want to control things, we don't have control at the end of the day. And I think that that was a narrative that I very much so had spoken over us in our marriage over and over, because that's the narrative that God has over us. Doesn't matter. Over and over, I'm going to love you. Over and over, I'm going to forgive you. Over and over, I'm going to come after you. I'm going to woo you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to take you. Like, he is the, you know, the ultimate example of what marriage looks like. And so, how could I not say yes to you continuously through these hardships? And so, I mean, as a woman, knowing that my spouse already has compromised health issues, I was not surprised. Because but it was still, like you had talked about with grief, you still have to grieve that.
Yeah.
And you still have to work through that. And, because as people have told us, and we've learned from history, that this crushes marriages for very real reason.
Yeah,
very real
legit.
reasons.
Yeah.
Totally. And so, yeah, I have and still am on a journey of grieving and lamenting and bringing God into those intimate places of like all those narratives that I had held of like being pregnant. What would it look like, for me to be pregnant with other friends? And, there's so many things. But I think what we have to kind of also bring in as a community is like, it's okay to work through this, and it's okay to be honest about this and not be like, well, but there's answers and you can do this and you can do this, because what we've experienced is there's grace in the in-between, and there's healing that is actually so healthy
and necessary
when you're going through it, right?
Yeah.
And
you gotta sit in it.
And you gotta sit in it, because I've not to put a jab, but I think, and this hasn't been my experience, but this has been experienced in this, if you want to call it, fertility community.
World.
Is that we're just so quick to put in another answer, because we live in a very controlling society. That's not necessarily our fault, but that is something that we've put on ourselves from generation to generation. So inevitably the answer is, well, here's some next steps.
Yeah.
That hasn't been our journey, because we're on this journey of grief right now. We're on this journey of going through the motions.
Yeah.
Is those next steps potentially could be a place? Absolutely. But I think within our journey, letting us feel these things out, we believe, and we've talked about it, that this is a healthy thing, so that initial promise that we made as to make that covenant is to go through these things and to not do these quick fixes.
Yeah.
Not that those are quick fixes, but to fix this. I think this is.
Well, I think to your point, it's like we live in such a cure-based society. That's like, what is the cure to this? So like, here's the problem, and here's how we fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a beautiful thing that can create. There's been many things that are beautiful because of that. Like, I'm alive because of that. Like, because of my catheters, because of the pills that I take, whatever else. Like, those things have saved my life. And that has for sure been designed by brilliant men and women who have that cure-based mentality. And I think there's beautiful things that can happen.
Amazing.
However, there's the physical pain, and then there's the actual whole body experience of pain. And even as someone with chronic health issues, if you are listening to this and you have health issues, like, there is the physical symptoms of what you're going through, but there is way more going on than just the physical. There is the emotional, there is the spiritual, there is the body. There's all these different things that are interconnected, that I think what you're expressing is like, before we go to the cure, before we go to the next steps, to like, okay, what, you can't do this, so now maybe you should adopt, or maybe you should do ABC, or maybe you could do, blah, 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 blah. We want to just be so quick. And I think that speaks to like the instant gratification, that we are so like quick to swipe, quick to whatever. Yeah. But instead of going to the quick, it's like, can I sit in this?
Can we?
Yeah.
Yeah, can we sit in this?
Can we sit in this pain? Can we sit in the in-between? Yeah. Can we sit in the waiting, but also in the pain? And I think for me, like, everyone deals with pain differently. And for myself, I'm someone who wants to escape when I'm in pain. I want to run. I want to get out of my body as much as possible. And so as I've grown and hopefully matured in my walk with Jesus and my life with you and my commitment to you, you know, I was saying this to a friend the other day. I'm like, I feel like the healthier you are, the harder it is to actually get through these things. And I'll explain what I mean. I'm saying because now I'll only speak from my own experience. I'm in a healthier place than I've ever been, but because I'm in a healthier place from the sense of however you want to define that, I actually recognize when I'm trying to escape.
Yeah.
I recognize when I'm using something in an inappropriate way. And so now I have to make that choice to say, no, I'm not going to escape. I'm going to choose to step away from this and actually experience this pain and experience these feelings and these thoughts and these narratives that come with this. I'm going to experience this shame and I'm going to sit in this shame. And as someone who's healthy, I think there's a healthy way to sit in those things, to express those things, but then to be able to let go of those things.
Well, it's like you're kind of speaking to the cognitive aspect of it, of like, you know, you're slowing down your fight or flight, essentially. You're, you know, and, you know, you're slowing down those pathways of just like, okay, what would it look like to just sit into this? And, you know, yeah, we live in a very fast-paced culture. Naturally, our first response is, okay, let's just try to figure this, like, what is the next step? Instead of going even before that of like what you're saying, just sitting into it. And that's spoken, you know.
It's more painful.
It's more painful and uncomfortable.
It's like what the scriptures talk about, like the narrow way. Like it's the harder way. It's way easier to just close your eyes.
Yeah.
It's way easier to just either move on quickly or go to the next fix or pick the next goal. Like you and I could have went straight to A, B, C, D, or just let's pour ourselves into our work then. Let's pour ourselves into whatever.
Careers, whatever.
Or whatever else. And it's like, whoa. Maybe we will. I mean, we don't have kids, so like we don't have as many responsibilities as other people, so maybe this is. Right. But even if it is, it's like, okay, before we get to that place, this is a legitimate thing that has happened, that has impacted us. And man, how relatable to like COVID. Like everyone watching this has been affected by this to a certain degree. And it's like, this is a legitimate thing that has happened. Like the world shut down. It shut down. And now all of a sudden it's like, yo, I'm going to work. I'm not wearing a mask no more. And for me, like with health issues, I've had to be more careful, yada, yada, no politics. But like, it's crazy because we're just like, we moved on. Like we're just like going. But the truth is, we haven't moved on. Everything's a mess. And it's a mess
so much.
Because maybe we haven't spent the time to actually process and sit in and live with the reality of like so much of this apparent control that we thought we had and this hero called medicine that we thought we could trust has actually failed us into some degree or another.
Yeah,
and you could say fail from the sense of if you're for vaccines or fail from the sense of if you're anti-vaccine. Like I'm not trying to say on either side. I'm not trying to put myself on either side of this conversation.
Narratives failed us.
The narrative,
certain
narratives, the things that we thought were going to help us get through. It was clear. It was clear. It was a mess.
And it's like, you know, to that, it's like we've said it to each other, but like we need to encourage each other to kind of maybe reflect back what did happen, what losses did we experience, because our current climate of whatever isn't changing that, isn't solving that. Kind of going back to the mountain view, that beautiful desert isn't, you know, of like, you know, Utah, and isn't going to solve what was and what is. And I have to be willing to go back and grieve that. So yeah, there was
really practical, like for you, love, like what does waiting Like, what does leaning into the pain look like for you? What has that looked like in this journey with all this?
I think because I thought endurance was just like, okay, just trust him. You're good. Just trust him. You're good. There's a bit of surface level, put face on. And I didn't notice that until, those pressure points. Oh, that's what's really going on. I haven't actually been honest. And so that was my aha moment. That was my, okay. I thought that my trust looked like something that it really wasn't. And I had to kind of re-surrender my trust in God. And the waiting looks like, surrender of what is comfortable and what is not comfortable. Everything. I think that's what creates that maybe resiliency in the waiting, is you're surrendering not just the things that you're waiting for, everything. And learning how to rejoice regardless of the results that you get. I think that's been, we've talked about that, right? Like, why do I still have joy? Or why do I, and I think it's because time and time again, we see this in scripture, and I've experienced this in my own life. It's just like I'm constantly just, I feel like if I were to look at a lot of things in my life, I'm having to wait for a lot. Not just this. It's a lot. And I think that speaks to a natural, like a human thing. I feel like as we grow up, there's a long list. I'm still waiting for my bills. I'm still waiting for, I don't know, relationships, whatever. Like there's, and so that's what it was. It was like, oh, it's not just this. Like I actually haven't trusted you in this area. I haven't trusted you in that area. And so I had to kind of put that up in the air and then ask for forgiveness, but then also forgive myself. Because if we're just waiting for the simplicity of just waiting, I'll just wait, I'll be patient, I'll be a patient human being, but we're not actually doing the work while we wait, then when we experience whatever we experience, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I feel like we'll kind of determine that kind of response. So if we're waiting for something and something good happens, oh great, God's always going to be faithful, but then what if he isn't, and he doesn't give us actually what he wants? But we haven't taken the time to, build our muscles, or whatever that, faith muscles, or whatever that, that's called. But
can I say something to that? Well, I think this is like, you're touching on something that's so important, I think, for us to talk about, which is like so much of the Christian community that I grew up in, that I respect and I appreciate for certain things, but there's other things that I'm like, I've had to work through some stuff. One of the things I've noticed is how much we have such a confusing understanding of suffering and the role that plays within our spiritual journey. And I think that like what you're talking about, like doing the work and like not rushing it and trusting Jesus and rejoicing through it. It's not like I'm just so tired of hearing people say there's a purpose behind your pain. God's going to use this pain so that you can help other people with it. That might be true. But often the people who are saying that, to like go back a little bit earlier to this conversation that we had right now about, you said when we stepped into this marriage, for me, like just speaking about Josiah, you said that there was an unworthiness that I had because of my health issues. I would say, as someone who's had my health issues my entire life, there's also a pressure to be something more than yourself. And there's this deep part of me that says, I am causing so much pain to everyone around me. I am like an orbit of pain because I am the one who is in pain, and the people that love me, when they see me in pain, they go through pain themselves. And even at like 4 years old, I could understand and see different people that were close to me, I'll say it like that, go through pain and know at 4 that it was in my 4-year-old mind, this is my fault. Is your fault. And so now, if I actually love them, what do I need to do to make them feel? And the problem is, well, as a 4-year-old, like, what does that even mean? But fast forward to a 28-year-old that's sitting here today, it's like when we stepped into marriage at 21, I felt this immense pressure that I had to somehow go above and beyond to even just hit the requirement of a healthy husband, if that makes sense. Because it's like, I'm already going to cause this person so much pain. So if I'm not the perfect freaking husband, we haven't even begun to, to be the man, you know what I mean? And that is such an insane pressure to put on yourself that's impossible to live up to. And what ends up happening is you end up just trying so hard to be something that you end up being the thing that you don't want to be in the first place, right? And Absolutely. You know that you've seen that in our marriage. And I think for me, there's been this journey of letting that go. But my point to go back to is to say that, like, when you turn this pain into a purpose, what that actually does is create an immense pressure on the person to perform.
Totally.
And that is so crappy because the person that's going through the pain is already going through the pain. And it's like, just let us go through the pain. Like, let me feel this. Let me experience this. Let me say that this sucks without turning it into a beautiful story.
Yeah, and there's certain, like, I will give, highlight that there are certain cultures that allow that mourning, that time and space to mourn. And I can't speak to, like, directly what specific cult, like, a community that does that, but I know that that's been people's story, is that they've allowed themselves in their community or in their homes to have a time of mourning, to time of place. And it's very much so in our whether that's like our upbringing or whether that's our direct community. It's like, I don't know if it's like, there's also an aspect of like, let me also take this from you too. Yeah. And there's almost, I don't know who said it, but the people who are saying, oh, it'll get better, or, that it's also, it's uncomfortable for them. So that's why they're saying it. Yeah. I don't know who said that. Yeah. That's not me. And that's another piece, because then they're resisting their own healing and grief and not addressing their own grief. So when we're saying that out of that place of uncomfortability, it's likely because they too have not stepped into that uncomfortability of grief, or it could be a number of things. But that's been my experience, our experience, seeing that with other people in the community. And can
I say that, like, to me, so then maybe someone could be asking, like, well, then, like, so what is the point of pain? It's
always going to be just dreary and
what's the point of pain? And I would say that we live, like, the classic Christian answer is we live in a fallen world, right? And so there's brokenness, there's evil. The ancient Christians would say there's 3 threats to the human soul: the world, the flesh, and the devil. the world being just like culture and the way that things are always geared towards destruction, the flesh being our own carnal nature, which is like Adam and Eve in the garden. Why did they eat the fruit when they had everything they need? That makes absolutely no sense, and yet every day I eat that fruit every day. And somehow, even though it makes no logical sense, we can still choose the wrong thing. That's the carnal. And then the devil, which is like a real thing. Like the devil and demons are real. They're not the only threat, though. It's the world, the flesh, and the devil. Yeah. And so I think part of this is pain is a result of all three of those things. One of those things, no, like, you know what I mean? It's a mixture. It's a mixed bag. But I think the thing is, though, the real question, so I think that people who look at pain from a distance ask why, but people who are actually within the pain, they might start with the why, but what they're really asking is where. Where is God? Where is God in the midst of this? And we might start with the why me, God, but what we're actually asking is where is he? And this is why I absolutely am so thankful to be a follower of Jesus, because honestly, the cross is the picture and the answer to where God is. The cross is the picture that says there is legitimate pain and evil and hurt. And I know you've heard this so many times. We talk about this with our church all the time, but it's legit. The cross is the picture of where pain and evil and injustice, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's in this world.
Yeah.
It will come.
Yeah.
How did it get there? Who knows? But it's here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where is God in the midst of our evil, in the midst of the injustice, in the midst of the pain? Where is he? What's his opinion on this crap?
Yeah.
He's in the middle of it. He's not just in the middle of it. He's there to deal with it from the sense of saying, this crap, this evil, this injustice will not have the final say. There is a greater story that can be told within eternity from an eternal perspective of beauty and grace and like that phoenix rising from the ashes, right? Like the beauty from ashes. There is something incredible that can come out of this. But that beauty and that creativity and all those things is not the production. It's not the performance. It's actually the reality of his love that gets to be revealed even through the darkest tragedy and horrific things that happen. As we lean in, as we walk through, as we choose not to escape or numb or whatever, what we will discover, and we've seen this in our own marriage, is he's with us.
And I think I think what you're speaking of is the anticipation of the beauty that can be experienced in the ashes. And I think, what I was saying earlier about, surrendering all those different things is also learning to embrace what is in the unseen and be open to the mystery that is. And to be and that means being okay to sit in that unknown. I would be more willing to sit in that unknown than to conjure my own other realities, because they do not even remotely come close to the beauty that God can produce, out of that.
Yeah.
And I think I know in my walk I have lost opportunities because opportunities of experiencing that beauty because I chose to create my own realities of things. And that was that kind of fake face of like, I'm okay, whatever. No, when I sat there and I was confronting it with my friend and I was like, no, it's not okay. I was like, emotions got hitting, and it's like, yeah, no, actually. And then I got to experience my friend's beauty and the opportunity it is to be loved and to be cherished. And I think that's another, that's that beauty that God intends for us to experience. But I wasn't open for it. I haven't, or I wasn't, and now I am, and to be open to, being embraced by my nieces and nephews and the life that is around me, the life that continues to fill this neighborhood, the life that continues to fill my work. You know, you had brought up the enemy, so I'll bring up the enemy. The enemy so wants us to be so focused elsewhere that we neglect the beauty and the light and the joy that is.
Yeah.
And so when we take our minds off of that and we're focused elsewhere, you know, then we kind of miss those opportunities of like, wow, that was incredible. I'm so glad I experienced that. But if I were somewhere else, I wouldn't have been able to kind of experience that. And I've used this kind of I've used this kind of terminology of just like the eternal weight of glory and the pure joy of what it is to exist as a son and a daughter of our beloved Father, is to experience something that is not of a earthly kingdom. It's part of his kingdom, and we are his precious jewels. And when we are experiencing the pain that we're experiencing, you know, he allows us to, you know, while we're sitting in that pain, he allows us to experience those beautiful moments, you know, if we're open to it, you know. And I know in my past I have not been open to it, but man, when we're open, I've seen this in our own marriage, how you know, you went from I'm not worthy, I can't, you know, be lovable, whatever, to I'm a confident man of God. And that confidence has shown and produced so much fruit in our marriage. And that's powerful. But if I'm over here looking elsewhere, I might miss seeing that fruit in you. Because I'm so focused on what isn't or what is not, that I'm not looking at, oh, this is what he's doing. This is what's happening in the waiting. I was so busy over here. And I have. And that's where I failed you in our marriage. A couple times. Only a couple.
Just a couple. Well, no, I think it's cool that I you know, I feel like that really speaks to like when we began this talk about the road trip of like the dream road trip, and then the road trip that we're on, and how do we let go of the dream and embrace what's in front of us.
Yeah.
And I think the truth is, for us on that road trip, to actually go practical into that story, is what was in front of us was a grief journey that had a defining moment of being told something that sucked, and us needing to have the space, and actually God in his mercy creating the space. Like, you think about, I said to you how with the baristas I would say like, I'm just so excited to have no responsibilities. I this would have been way harder to work through if we still had those responsibilities. And I think we even said that to I said that to someone the other day. I said, I think we would have had to step away temporarily from our church, like from leadership, because of just needing to actually give this space to process. But lo and behold, we end up having that space. But as we kind of come closer to the end of this time that we're having right now, like, there's the trip that we dreamed of, letting go of the trip, embracing what's in front of us. I hear that, but then there's also this like, don't just move on when you're given something horrible. Like, almost like lean into it and wait, be willing to wait. And so I'm curious for you, Kara, like, as we wrap this thing up, like, what practically would you say could help someone? Like, if they're listening to you and they're going through something right now, and we're like having this chat, right? Like, what does waiting actually look like, from the sense of, like, are you journaling? Are you praying? Like, what is prayer in that respects? Like, are you reading? Like, how is that? Are you talking to people? Are you talking to everyone? Who are you, like, you know what I mean? Like, some of those practical, like, how do we lean into the pain and not?
Yeah, well, I'm no expert, you know, and I'm learning as I go. We're learning as we go. So, I've seen this in other, people, and in my own personal experience. In my own personal experience, it's been journaling every day. We have this language in our culture of like self-care. And it is true in the sense of like, it is self-care, but it's like, if we're not willing to work on ourselves, like we're not going to be able to have the capacity for other people. And that's been also that practical aspect of it, of like, I'm also needing to tend to this so that I can tend to that. Not that you're that, but you. To us. Yeah. To this. Yeah. To my roles. And that was kind of huge. It's like, oh, like, yeah, like I'm a runner. I'm a runner at heart. I am all over the place naturally. I'm organized chaos. So I love to be everywhere else, but right here in my head and in sometimes my actions. So that daily dose of just, I'm just going to sit in here. Maybe I'm not going to journal. Maybe I'm just going to sit and hear the Lord. Or I'm just going to like maybe go for a walk. And maybe it's mindfulness. Maybe it's getting away from my thoughts. Maybe it's focusing my attention on nature and getting myself, maybe I'm so focused on something, I have to unfocus myself on that to focus something on, things that bring peace to my life. Food, or like nature, or, what brings, who God has made me to be. To embrace that. Yeah. To embrace the things that I like, the things that may bring joy to my life. That's maybe different for you. Yeah. And then prayer is huge, I think, within all of that. And then I think something that I'm learning, because I'm just that independent woman that wants to do things on her own, kind of needs to push that narrative aside for a second and be honest with my friends. And my friends who I've created that trust with, that safety with, where they've shared their own vulnerability with, who accepts me for who I am and holds space for those hard conversations without fixing it and shoving it down, but actually allows us to be our true selves. I think that those are the friends who have helped me along this journey, who have prayed with me, who have been like, wow, Kirli, that sucks. Yeah. How are you feeling about that? And actually asking me how I'm feeling, not just, wow, that sucks, and kind of moving on, but, and is there as a community, because, man, we can't do this on our own, and that's what we've kind of learned, is that we can't do this on our own. And so to have that in place, I think when you do that, and then taking care of yourself, which I've already kind of talked about, is kind of huge, and then tending to your spouse or your partner who you're actually going on this journey with. I think that's been huge. It's like tending to ourselves is huge, but then tending to each other, I think, is a big thing. Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's been my own kind of journey. There's probably more I would like to add, but I have to pee, so. Let's wrap up the tuna.
well, on that note then. Cool. Yeah, why don't we end it on that note then? I think that's good. Yeah, I think that obviously there's a lot that we've talked about, but I think hopefully something in this can be encouraging for someone else. And yeah, it's worth leaning in. It's worth taking those steps, but it also is incredibly painful. And that's why we need each other. We need other people in our lives that we can trust, that we can walk with. But ultimately, it's God, right? Like, He is our refuge. And He's not afraid to hear us yell, scream, shout, cry. Like, it's all in that book. Like, it's all there. It's all, like, it's, what's it called? What's the saying? Like, it's all fair game. right? Like it's
Totally.
fair game. Like this is painful, and we're meant to lean into that pain and to express that to God in whatever way.
Yeah.
And watch him be present to us in that. And I'm getting the look of a woman who really needs to pee. So we are going to cut it there. And we hope that you guys have a great rest of your day or whatever it is that you're doing. And hopefully something in this is encouraging for you. I really don't know what camera to look at. So that's very confusing. But cheers.